somebody recently asked me, they're like, how come wasn't it difficult? Wasn't life a lot simpler when you just fucked around with computers and shit? And I was like, fuck no. And they asked that because I was a lot younger, and basically all I really did was fuck with computers, you know, screw around with those things, fix them and shit like that, and build them. And it's not like I just magically switched from, you know, building Bessie to building the WR. What actually happened was I finally was able to get a motorcycle and built my first bike and shit, and basically said fuck you to my parents because they were like, you're never getting actually one of them one of them's like, you can get a motorcycle license when I die. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And so I kind of just said fuck you, and my first bike was one that you didn't even need a license to drive or ride or whatever. And that scared the living shit out of my parents because it, well, to give you an idea, the motor once fell off in my lap. And it's not my engineering that made the motor do that. It's just it was one of those little Chinese two-stroke things that you buy for a conversion kit for a bike, and it was before I built the motor into something, you know, worth riding, before I converted all the bolts and everything to hardware that didn't suck. And anyways, that's its own thing. I completely forgot what I was saying there. So I've always been very mechanically inclined and interested. I've always fucked around with engines and shit like that. It's just for the majority of my childhood, I really haven't been able to screw with them. Fuck it, we'll go right. Just because of the fact that I still need to get gas. You know what? Fuck it, I'll get gas. That seems like a smart, intelligent thing to do. Just because the majority of my childhood, I didn't have mechanical things to really screw with.
So, hang on. Wrong card. Okay. And waiting for the click, or no. Click. Or the pump's just being really slow. Oh, it is. There we go. Oh. Don't chip onto my bike. Somebody texted me. Remember when they said you're not supposed to use your phone and stuff? That was a big deal. That's probably still a big deal. Yes, I would like a receipt. Don't fuck me over at Walmart. Almost $3 a gallon to fill this thing. Or well, $6. I don't remember my old bikes are cheap. And on regular octane, you got a shit ton of miles to the gallon. Thank you for shopping with blah 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 blah.
It's weird to start that sitting. Anyways, so for the majority of my childhood, I really didn't have... My parents were always... I mean, I occasionally had mechanical shit to play with, but my parents were kind of scared of me hurting myself, I guess. And so as a result, when it came to fucking around with shit, even kits, like I was pretty much limited to Legos and small motors that I had taken out of things, simply because, well, I don't know. They just figured I would kill myself fucking with electricity and petroleum and shit like that, and they're probably right about that. I mean, look at this thing. Not this part of it. I didn't do this part. I did some of the other parts. My wallet just doesn't want to stay in the spot. Oh, whatever. Anyways, so really what I ended up going to is just computers. A lot of my childhood was just fixing old piece of shit computers, modifying the living shit out of them, and partially because I had no money to, you know, buy good computers. A lot of times my computers were hand-me-downs that were already dead when I got them. And every single one of those computers that was handed to me, except for one of the ones that was actually bought for me, I still have and still works. And one of them is older than me, which is hilarious. It has a 4 gig hard drive and like 64 meg of RAM. And I have a calculator with 100 meg of RAM. It's kind of depressing when you think about it. So yeah, in all honesty, motorcycles and things like that are a hell of a lot simpler, in my opinion, than computers. Even the ones that have computers. And the reason I say this is because if somehow you manage to blow up a CPU, legitimately blow one up, you're pretty much done. You just have to get another CPU. If, again, well, actually it's not a somehow in this case, it's pretty easy to blow a motor. You blow up an engine, well, you probably should just buy another one and give up, but I guess it depends on how you blow it. You can rebuild it. And that's not really a good example, but I'm trying to think of a really good example that works in both cases. This motorcycle's a 2001, and it's still pretty good for the most part. Whereas if you had a computer from 2001, and I do, depending on the computer, I guess, it's probably in a landfill. I love this gearing, doing 6,000 at 48. Oh yeah. Makes it fun though. But I do need to make it taller gearing, so. But I don't know, they were extreme. A lot of people are surprised when they see my videos on YouTube of me on a motorcycle. The people who knew me anyways, because I guess a lot of people thought I was very antisocial and was going to be that kid who just always had a ridiculous computer that was hacking for the guy. Actually, a lot of people thought I was going to be that kind of a person, and honestly, I've never wanted to be that. I just think it's stupid in my opinion. Well, it's a stupid job to me. I don't think it's worth my time or anything like that, but other people may. And I honestly thought it was boring. I used to do shit like that, and there was a point where I wanted to be an ethical hacker. And I don't mean I used to do shit like I used to work for the government or anything like that. I used to do network security for websites and shit I owned. They're doing some testing of something. Looks like they've got a burnout contest going on. So I don't know. I prefer bikes because computers, they're equally as fun, honestly. You could play it, you can be anything, do anything, whatever you want to do on a computer, even if it's physically impossible to do realistically. That's the beauty of computers. Whatever you can possibly imagine, you can do on a computer. You can make that thing fly. I've done it on several different games. There's a lot of games where the bike I'm on, you'd be able to just click a button and suddenly you can hover. So that's one cool thing, is especially with virtual reality coming out more and more to wow, look at those two fucks. They're like, la 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 la, we're expensive, we're gonna crash. With virtual reality becoming more accessible to the general public, it's very easy for people to create a virtual realm in which they can do whatever the fuck they want, and fuck whatever they want for that matter. Whereas motorcycles, by comparison, are extremely limited, let's face it, if you're comparing it in that sense. However, what the fuck are they doing? I don't care what you say about virtual reality, I own an Oculus Rift, a DK2. And I've played racing games with it, and there is nothing that compares to the real thing. Just the ability to, oh yes. I don't care what you say about simulations, there is nothing that compares to the real thing in many instances, in my opinion. Many people will disagree, and you know what? I can think of one particular instance where you might want to just stay on the virtual one instead. And that, for example, would be first-person shooters, in which, well, let's face it, in real life, you die. Whereas in a virtual game, I should slow down a little bit because, you know, in a virtual game, you're free to do whatever the fuck you want, no matter how much people scream at you and tell you you suck. Because the bullets aren't really hurting you, although I have seen many instances where people get so pissed about the game that they do hurt themselves. So there's that. I'm not sure where I was going with those two things, other than the fact that, you know, if you want one, each one has its advantages, I guess. Flight simulators on a computer, for example, I mean, pilots are trained on computers first, so those are pretty fucking realistic. If you get serious into those can be fun. But again, unless you spend at least a couple million, you're not ever going to really... Wow, okay. Everyone's just being stupid. You're not ever really going to... It's not going to be like the real thing. I'm trying to figure out how to say, basically, that you won't be tilting. If you understand what I'm saying. Like, I mean, drifting in midair is all fun and games and shit, but nothing compares to doing it in the real thing. I can think of one instance where it probably should stay on a computer for a lot of people I know, but not because it's dangerous, just because a lot of the people I've seen do it are stupid about it. And that's mudding in particular. A lot of off-roading types, but mudding in particular, because nobody really knows what the fuck they're doing, it seems. That I know. Not necessarily that, not necessarily in general, but just a lot of people. A lot of people have no idea. I've met people who have no idea why their four-wheel drive does not mean... Why four-wheel drive does not mean that all the wheels are consistently always exactly the same speed. I've met those kind of people, and then they wonder why they get stuck. I feel like I know the person who just went by. Those kind of people, yeah, they should probably at least learn physics of mud. Especially if they're in Texas. Because we don't have mud, we have jello. But in all honesty, it's not like I've given up computers or anything. I just, especially in Bessie's case, I have one that's so ridiculous that there's really no point in continuing to try and improve upon it. Because I'm too casual about how serious I am. I'm very serious about numbers and things like that, knowing that I have ridiculous numbers and benchmarks and shit like that, knowing I'm capable of doing stupid things. But I'm very unserious about the fact that to keep improving upon those numbers and keep making them better and keep staying on top of ranks, if I'm competing against basically the world, I have to spend thousands of dollars. I'm not very serious about that, mainly because I just don't have that kind of income. As a matter of fact, I don't have anywhere near that income. I couldn't, like, if I didn't spend a dime of my money in a month, I don't think I could, I still don't think I could afford to do anything like that, even close. Like, I honestly couldn't afford to keep up with even just one part. For example, all the Titans that have come out since mine, because I have a first generation, there's no way in hell I'd be able to keep up with them. Partially because each one that comes out is at least $1,000. And I really can't justify the cost of them every few months or year or so like that. I don't know. When I spend money on my computer, it's a lot of money at once, but it's like an overhaul. So somehow, though, I can justify all the money I've spent on this. Sort of. Not really. I'm not really justifying it. And I was actually just about to say that bikes can take you all sorts of places and shit, but so can computers, to be honest. There's not a single place you can go on a bike that you can't do in a computer. And if there isn't, well, it can be made. That can be fixed very quickly. And green light. Oh, green arrow. So yeah, I don't know why that had to turn into that long topic or whatever, but basically, that's what's been going on. I don't know, not necessarily the topic, but just that fact that I've been that busy. It's only 40 here. Calm down.